Hi guys, I'm live. Let me know if you guys can hear this. This is a walk rant music lesson. Haven't done that in a while. And in fact, I've been muted for a while. So let me know if you guys can hear this. I'd like to do a music lesson on the theory of the song "Not of This Earth" by Joe Satriani. It's the first song on his first solo album. First album, actually. I don't think he had a band called The Squares before that, but that was his first album. And first song, self-titled, name of the album was "Not of This Earth," and first song was called "Not of This Earth." I'd like to talk about that theory-wise. Let me go if you guys can hear this. So "Not of This Earth" uses pitch axis theory, which is where you have one note stays constant as the tonic, and modes. Parallel modes move around that tonic from mode to mode, but staying with that same tonic. And in this case, the song is in the key of E, as in elephant. And the modes, I'd like to discuss with you what modes he uses and all that. So he uses chords that are basically sus4 chords, or you could call them sus2 chords, but I'll call them sus4 chords for now. Chords are played on the fourth, third, and second strings, so they're shapes like it's like a major triad with a sus4. So it's like and they're played across one fret on the fourth and third strings, and then the second string plays 2 frets down from that. So it's kind of like a triad shape, but with a sus4 instead of the major third. You can think of it as a minor sus4 too, but that's weird because there's a whole step between the minor third and the fourth. It's easier to call it a major sus4. So the first one that starts out is a G sharp sus4 chord, but with the low E droning and the high E droning on the guitar. So the G sharp sus4 has a note on the fourth string of the 6th fret, and that's the G sharp. And then there's the third string on the 6th fret, which is C sharp, and then there's the fourth fret, second string on the 4th fret, which is G sharp, and that makes and that all makes a G sharp sus4 chord. And the mode he chooses for this is E Lydian. This is because the notes implied in the key of E, if you play a G sharp sus4, you get. I mean, if there's a loud motorcycle go by, thank you. You get. It's basically the major third, which is the G sharp is the major third, and then C sharp is the major 6th, and then the G sharp is the major 7th. So either Ionian mode or Lydian mode would do, but he chooses Lydian mode, which I think is a good choice. I like that choice in this context. It's more interesting than the Ionian, and it's a cool sounding mode. I like it. And then he flattens the whole thing down to a G sus4. Now you have the notes G, C, and D. And the G is the G is the minor third in E, and C is the minor 6th, and D is the minor 7th. So that obviously could actually be a Phrygian mode, but he goes with Aeolian mode, which I think is natural, which is a good choice. So far we have E Lydian to E Aeolian, and then he goes back to the G sharp sus4, which implies E Lydian again, and then he raises the whole thing up a half step to to A sus4, and the A sus4 is really sketchy. It doesn't define that doesn't define a harmony that particularly, but you have an A, a D, and an E. So you basically have a minor seventh, a perfect fourth, and D, F, G, A, B, C, D, D, E, and the root, the tonic, the E. So you could do a lot of things with that. But he does a cool approach that I think is cool. What he does is he takes it as if it's the same as the Aeolian, but up a whole step, because it is. It would be. You could take the Aeolian chord, which is a G sus4, and raise it up a whole step to A sus4, and if you played an Aeolian a whole step up, you get a mixolydian. So if you start with an Aeolian and go up a whole step, you're going to have a mixolydian mode, because you're going to have a whole step. You have an Aeolian a whole step higher, which leaves you with mixolydian, because mixolydian is a whole step below Aeolian. So that's the mode he chooses for the final thing, is an E mixolydian, and then back down half step to the G sharp sus4, which again implies E Lydian. So it's basically a cycle of E Lydian, E Aeolian, E Lydian, E mixolydian, and so forth. And I think it's a cool thing. It's a cool sounding piece. It's a cool piece to challenge your modal awareness when you're playing and improvising over it. It's a good intellectual exercise to make sure you know your theory pretty well, because it's not the easiest song, but it's challenging and fun. And I dig that song, Now This Earth by Joe Satriani, and I think it's a cool song. The first time I ever saw Joe Satriani was at the Canton Palace Theater in Canton, Ohio, and Now This Earth was the first song he played. And it was so cool to hear that song starting to play as he came out on stage. I'll leave you guys peace, love, and